The storm had come like a living beast, howling with an anger that no one could understand. It swept through the village with a power that made the trees tremble and the ground shake beneath people's feet. The sky, once clear and peaceful, had turned dark, as though the heavens themselves were weeping for the land below. Arya stood in the doorway of her small home, clutching the frame as if it could hold her to the ground. The wind howled, fierce and unrelenting, and the rain poured down in sheets, as though the world were ending. Her heart pounded in her chest as she called out for her son, Kai. She could barely hear her own voice over the noise of the storm. "Kai," she cried, her voice cracking with fear. "Kai, where are you?" Her baby had been playing just moments before, laughing as he tried to chase the small creatures that scurried across the dirt floor of their home. Arya had been watching him with a mother's joy, but then the storm came so quickly, without warning. It took everything, her joy, her peace, her hopes for the future. The wind grew stronger and the rain turned into a torrent, rushing down the hills and flooding the paths. Arya ran through the muddy streets, her clothes sticking to her skin as she struggled against the fierce wind. She could hardly see through the rain, but she called out again, her voice growing louder, more desperate. "Kai, Kai, where are you?" She stumbled, nearly losing her balance as the wind tried to knock her over. But Arya would not stop. She couldn't stop. Not until she found her son. He was just a baby, only a few months old. How could he survive in this storm? How could he be out there alone with the wind and rain and the wild creatures of the forest? She had to find him. She had to. With each step, her fear grew, a cold knot tightening in her chest. She reached the edge of the village where the storm was even more furious. The wind was like a wall, pushing her back with every step she took. Her mind raced as she scanned the area, but the landscape had changed. The trees were bending under the pressure of the wind, their branches snapping with loud cracks. The river that ran beside the village was rising quickly, its waters churning violently, threatening to spill over its banks. "Kai!" Arya shouted, her voice barely audible above the roar of the storm. "Please, Kai, answer me." She wiped the rain from her eyes and looked again, hoping to catch sight of her son. But there was nothing, no sign of him. She felt her legs begin to give way under her, the weight of fear and sorrow pushing her down. Tears mixed with the rain on her face as she collapsed onto the muddy ground, calling for her son over and over again. The storm did not care. The rain kept falling, the wind kept howling, and the world around her seemed to close in. Arya's heart was breaking as she sat in the mud, feeling as if she were losing everything. She had always promised to protect Kai, to keep him safe from harm. But how could she protect him now when the very forces of nature were against her? For what felt like hours, she searched. She ran through the streets down into the valley across the fields. The storm grew worse, but Arya didn't care. She had to find her son. But no matter how far she went, how loud she called, there was no answer. No Kai. She could feel her hope slipping away with each passing minute. It was as if the world itself had taken him from her. The rain turned into a deluge, and the wind picked up again, nearly knocking her off her feet. Arya paused for a moment, taking deep breaths, trying to calm herself. She couldn't give up, not now, not when her son was out there somewhere. But then, as she stood there, lost in her own thoughts, something happened. A strange, sudden silence fell over the land. The wind stopped. The rain slowed to a light drizzle. The howling storm, so loud and fierce just moments before, seemed to vanish. Arya looked around, confused. The world had gone eerily still. It was as though the storm had stopped in its tracks, and now everything was quiet. Then she heard it, a soft sound in the distance like a faint cry, a voice. "Kai," Arya whispered, hope blooming in her chest. Could it be? Could her son still be alive? The cry came again, this time a little louder, but it was still too far away to make out clearly. Arya's heart raced as she listened carefully. There it was again, a sound. It was definitely her son. He was out there somewhere, and he needed her. Without a second thought, she pushed forward, stumbling through the wet mud as fast as she could. She ignored the fatigue in her legs and the burning in her chest. She had to reach him. She couldn't fail him now. The cry grew louder as she followed the sound. Her eyes were wide with fear and hope. What had happened to him? How had he survived? How could he have been so far from home in the storm? Arya didn't know, but she was closer now. She could feel it. As she reached the edge of the forest, she saw a figure standing in the distance, bathed in a strange, glowing light. Arya froze, her heart stopping for a moment. Who was it? Was it Kai? Was it someone else? The figure moved, and Arya's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the shape of a person. But this was no ordinary person. The figure was tall and strong, dressed in something that shimmered in the strange light, and there was something about him, something that felt different. The man walked toward her, and as he did, Arya's eyes widened. In his arms was her son, Kai. Arya gasped and rushed forward, tears filling her eyes as she saw her baby, alive and well. He was wrapped in the arms of this mysterious figure, a human who seemed to have come from nowhere, and yet he had her son. Her baby was safe. "Kai," Arya cried, her voice filled with joy and disbelief. "Oh my goodness, Kai!" The man stopped in front of her, holding the baby out to her with a calm, almost otherworldly expression on his face. His eyes met hers, and for a moment everything else seemed to disappear. "You're safe now," the man said, his voice low and steady. "He is safe now." Arya took her son in her arms, cradling him close to her chest. She could feel his warmth, the familiar, comforting weight of him. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the scent of her baby, feeling a deep sense of relief wash over her. "How did you find him?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. The man did not answer immediately. Instead, he simply looked at her, his expression unreadable, as though he were trying to decide what to say next. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke. "I am Kale," he said. "I've been watching over him, and now I've brought him back to you." Arya didn't understand. "Watching over him? Who are you?" Kale's gaze softened as he looked at the baby in her arms. "I'm not from here," he explained. "But I've been sent to protect him and to protect you." Arya's confusion deepened. Who was this man? How could he have known about her son? And why had he come now in the middle of the storm? Kale took a deep breath as though gathering his thoughts. "Your son is special, Arya," he said. "And so are you. This storm was no accident, it was a warning. But now that I've found him, we can begin." Kale stood silently, watching Arya cradle her son, Kai, in her arms. The storm had passed, but the world still felt strange, almost as though the very air had changed. Arya could feel it too. The tension was thick, heavy with the weight of the unknown. Who was Kale? Why had he appeared now in the middle of the storm? She had so many questions, but she couldn't bring herself to ask. All she could think about was her son, alive, safe, in her arms again. The feeling of relief was so overwhelming that it made her knees feel weak. She looked up at Kale, her eyes filled with gratitude and confusion. "Thank you," she said softly. Her voice wavered, the words barely coming out. "But who are you? How did you find us?" "How did you save my son?" Kale's expression remained calm and unreadable. He seemed to be studying her as if trying to decide how to explain everything. Finally, he spoke in a quiet, measured tone. "I've been watching over your son for some time now. I know this may sound strange, but there are things about Kai that you don't yet understand. Things that will change the fate of this world." Arya felt a chill run down her spine at his words. She looked at Kai, her baby, and hugged him a little tighter, almost as if she could protect him from whatever Kale was talking about. But she needed to understand. She needed to know why this man had appeared at this moment. "Why him?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. "Why my son, and why now? The storm, it was like it was meant to happen." Kale nodded slowly. "You're right, the storm was no accident. It was a test, a trial of sorts, to see if I could find him before it was too late." Arya shook her head in confusion. "But what does all of this mean? Why is my son so special? And who are you?" Kale's gaze softened as he looked at Kai. "Your son, Arya, is not like other children. He has abilities that no one else on this planet has. His powers are unlike anything we've seen before. He is the key to saving this world and perhaps all of humanity." Arya felt a knot form in her stomach. Powers? Her son? What was Kale talking about? She had always known Kai was different, but she had never imagined anything like this. "What do you mean, powers?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What kind of powers?" Kale turned his gaze towards the sky, his eyes narrowing as if he were looking into the distance, seeing something Arya couldn't. "Kai has the ability to connect with the energy of the planet itself. He can harness the power that flows through this world and use it in ways no one can understand. His energy is the strongest I've ever encountered." Arya's mind raced. What was Kale saying? She had always thought of Kai as a normal child, just a baby, innocent and fragile. How could he have such abilities? And how could anyone know about them? "But how do you know this?" Arya asked, her voice barely a whisper. "And why are you here? What do you want with him?" Kale met her gaze, his eyes filled with a strange intensity. "I've been watching this planet for a long time. I'm not from here, neither of us are. I come from a group of humans who have been scattered across the galaxy." For generations, we've been searching for the ones who could save us all, and your son Kai is one of them. Arya took a step back, her mind spinning. You're not from here, but where are you from, and why do you keep saying my son can save us? Kale's expression softened, as though he understood how difficult this was for her to grasp. I know this is a lot to take in, but listen to me, Arya. There is a war coming, a war that threatens everything, the world, your people, even the universe. The invaders you've been fighting, the ones who brought the storm, they are only the beginning. Their power grows stronger every day, but Kai is the one who can stop them. Arya felt a shiver run through her. The invaders. The ones who had destroyed so much, who had left their mark on her world. She had heard the stories, seen the destruction they caused, but she had never imagined it would come to this. Her son, the one she had held in her arms just moments ago, was somehow connected to this larger war, this larger battle. Why Kai? She asked, her voice trembling. Why him? Kale sighed, his eyes filled with something that resembled both sadness and hope. Because Kai is special. His connection to the planet is stronger than any other being. He has the power to control the elements, to tap into the very energy that powers this world. And with that power, he can stop the invaders. He can prevent the destruction of everything you've ever known. Arya's mind raced. She couldn't fully comprehend what Kale was saying, but one thing was clear. Her son was at the center of something much bigger than she could have ever imagined. The weight of it all was too much to bear. How could she protect him from something so powerful? How could she help him when she didn't even understand what was happening? I don't know if I can do this, Arya said, her voice breaking. I don't know if I'm strong enough to protect him, to help him. Kale placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You are stronger than you think, Arya. You are his mother. That bond is the strongest power of all. Together, you and Kai can face whatever comes next. But you must trust me. There is no time to waste. Arya looked down at her son, his small face peaceful in her arms. She could feel the warmth of him against her chest, the steady beat of his heart. She had always known that being a mother meant making difficult choices. But this was something else entirely. How could she keep him safe when she didn't even understand what she was protecting him from? I don't know what to do, Arya whispered, more to herself than to Kale. I just want him to be safe. I want him to grow up in a world where he can be happy. Kale nodded, his gaze softening. I understand, but the world is changing, Arya. Your son is the key to stopping that change. Without him, the invaders will take over. They will destroy everything. And without you, Kai won't be able to realize his full potential. Arya closed her eyes, holding Kai closer. She couldn't deny the truth in Kale's words. She could feel it deep inside her, the sense that Kai was part of something bigger than she could ever comprehend. But it didn't make it any easier. It didn't make the fear go away. It didn't make her feel any more prepared to face whatever was coming. We need to leave, Kale said suddenly, breaking through her thoughts. The invaders will be searching for you, for Kai. We need to go to a safe place, somewhere they can't find us. It's the only way to protect him. Arya looked up at him, the fear in her eyes still there. Where will we go? Kale's expression was serious. I have a place, a hidden sanctuary where others like me have been living. It's far from here. It's the only place where Kai can learn to control his powers and where you can both be safe. Arya nodded, still holding Kai tightly in her arms. The thought of leaving everything behind, the life she had known, the people she had loved, was terrifying. But she knew that Kale was right. If she stayed, Kai would never be safe. She would never be safe. With a deep breath, she looked at Kale. Lead the way. Arya had never felt the weight of the world so heavy before. As she followed Kale through the dense forest, with Kai still in her arms, every step felt like it was leading her into the unknown. The path was dark, the trees towering above them like silent sentinels, their branches intertwining to block out the faint light from the stars above. The storm had passed, but the air still felt charged, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Kale walked ahead, his movements fluid, almost as if he were not of this world. Arya could see the way the shadows seemed to part for him, as if nature itself recognized him as something different. She didn't fully understand what Kale was or where he had come from, but she could sense the power he held. A power that both scared and reassured her at the same time. He had saved her son. He had found Kai when the storm had torn everything apart, and for that, Arya owed him more than words could express. But even with her gratitude, the fear still clung to her. She had no idea what lay ahead, what dangers they were running from, or what exactly Kale meant when he said Kai could save the world. The idea was almost too big to comprehend. Her son, a mere baby, was supposed to change everything. But how? And why had Kale come for him? Arya had more questions than ever, but she didn't dare ask. She was too afraid of the answers. As they walked deeper into the forest, Arya's thoughts kept returning to the storm that had torn her village apart, the storm that had brought Kale to them. It had all been so sudden, so violent. Could it really have been a test, as Kale had said? What kind of test would destroy everything in its path? Arya shivered, her mind unable to process the magnitude of what had happened. She had lost everything she had known in an instant. The village, her friends, her way of life, it was all gone. And now she was being led into the unknown with her son and a stranger she barely understood. Finally, after what felt like hours of walking in silence, Kale stopped. They had reached a small clearing in the forest, a place where the trees parted and the night sky could be seen clearly above. It was quiet here, the only sound the distant rustling of the wind through the leaves. Kale turned to face Arya, his expression serious. "This is where we must part for now," he said, his voice steady but filled with an urgency that made Arya's heart skip a beat. "You and Kai will be safe here for the time being. I must go ahead and make sure the path is clear. The invaders are still searching for you." Arya nodded, though her stomach twisted with unease. She had no idea what Kale was about to do or what the invaders were capable of. But she trusted him. He had brought Kai back to her, and for that she was willing to follow him anywhere. She couldn't afford to let fear control her now. Her son's life and perhaps the future of the world depended on it. Kale looked at her for a moment, his gaze softening slightly. "I know this is difficult, Arya, but you must understand what lies ahead will be even harder. Kai is the key to everything, and we need to prepare him. You need to be strong for him." "I will be," Arya replied, though the words felt hollow in her mouth. How could she be strong when everything she knew had been shattered? How could she be the mother Kai needed when she didn't even understand what was happening? Kale nodded, seeming to understand her unspoken fears. "I will return soon. Stay hidden. Don't let anyone find you." And with that, he turned and disappeared into the shadows of the forest, leaving Arya alone in the eerie stillness. For a long moment, she stood there, unsure of what to do next. She looked down at Kai, still sleeping peacefully in her arms. The warmth of his tiny body was the only thing that felt real in this strange new world. She had to protect him. She had to figure out what all of this meant. The night stretched on, and Arya sat down on a large rock, her mind racing with questions. What had Kale meant when he said that Kai was the key? She didn't understand how a baby could be the solution to something as big as saving the world. But Kale seemed certain. And there was something about him, something about the way he spoke, that made Arya believe him. She couldn't explain why, but she trusted him. She had to, for Kai's sake. As the hours passed, Arya's thoughts grew more restless. She couldn't just sit here and wait. She needed to know more. She needed to understand what was happening. The silence around her was deafening, broken only by the occasional chirp of a distant insect. But in that silence, Arya thought she could hear something else, a soft hum like a vibration in the air. She looked around, but there was no sign of Kale. The sound seemed to be coming from within her, a strange sensation that made her skin tingle. She held Kai closer, her fingers tightening around him as the hum grew louder. Was it her imagination, or was something else happening? She felt the energy around her shifting, as if the very ground beneath her feet was alive. And then suddenly Kai stirred in her arms. He let out a small, soft cry, his tiny hands reaching up to her. Arya's heart skipped a beat as she looked down at him. His eyes were still closed, but there was something different about him. His skin seemed to glow faintly in the moonlight, a soft, golden hue that was barely noticeable but unmistakable. "Kale," she whispered, her heart racing. Was this the power he had spoken of? Was this the beginning of whatever was to come? Kai's little hands reached up again, and Arya instinctively brought him closer to her chest. The hum she had felt earlier was now stronger, vibrating through her very bones. It was as if the energy of the planet itself was responding to Kai. Arya had no idea what was happening, but she could feel it. The power was real. Her son was special. She had always known that, but now she could sense it. She could feel it in every part of her being. As the night wore on, Arya held Kai close, waiting for Kale to return. The quiet was almost unbearable, but she stayed calm, determined to protect her son. She knew that whatever came next, she would face it with him by her side. She had no choice. Hours passed, and just as the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Kale reappeared from the shadows. He looked exactly the same as before, but there was something different about him. His eyes were sharper, his movements more deliberate. He had been preparing for something, Arya could tell. "The path is clear," Kale said, his voice low but filled with urgency. "It's time to move." Arya stood, her legs stiff from sitting for so long. She nodded, her resolve hardening. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear that still clung to her. "To a safe place," Kale replied. "The sanctuary where Kai can learn to control his power. It's the only place where he'll be able to reach his full potential." Arya looked down at Kai, still in her arms, and nodded. "Let's go." As they began walking again, Arya's heart pounded in her chest. She had no idea what lay ahead, but she was ready. For Kai, for the future, for whatever it would take to keep him safe. The journey had just begun. The journey seemed endless. Every step they took, every path they followed, felt like it led them deeper into a world they didn't fully understand. Arya's heart was heavy with the weight of what Kale had said. Kai was no ordinary child. He was destined for something far beyond anything Arya could have imagined. She had only just begun to grasp the enormity of it all. How could she protect him? How could she help him? These questions circled in her mind like a storm, but she had no answers. The forest was dense and quiet, save for the soft rustling of the leaves underfoot and the distant calls of unseen creatures. The air was thick with moisture, and the ground was soft, making every step feel like a struggle. Arya could feel the dampness seeping into her skin, but she didn't care. All that mattered was Kai. He was safe for now, nestled against her chest, his tiny body warm against her. But for how long? How long would they be safe before the invaders found them? How long before the war Kale had spoken of came crashing into their lives? Every night when they made camp, Arya would hold Kai close, praying that they would find safety soon. She had never known a life like this. She had never known fear like this. But as much as she was afraid, there was also a part of her that felt a strange sense of purpose. Kai's destiny was tied to something greater than herself, something greater than anything she could control. She wasn't sure what it was, but she felt it in her bones. She couldn't run from it. She couldn't hide from it. She had to face it, no matter how terrifying it seemed. Kale had been silent for most of the journey, walking ahead with a purpose that Arya could not quite understand. He had told her little about where they were going, only that it was a safe place, a place where Kai could learn to control his abilities. That was the only thing Arya clung to now, the hope that they would find a way to protect Kai and the world he was meant to save. Kale seemed confident, but Arya couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to his story, more he wasn't telling her. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest floor, Kale stopped. Arya, who had been lost in thought, almost bumped into him. She looked up at him, waiting for him to speak. "We're close," Kale said, his voice low and steady. "The sanctuary is just beyond these hills. It's hidden, but we'll be safe there." Arya's heart skipped a beat. Safe. The word felt like a promise, but it also felt like a lie. How could they be truly safe when the invaders were still out there, searching for them? How could they be safe when the power that Kai possessed was so great that it could change the course of everything? Kale seemed to read her thoughts. "I know you're afraid," he said, his gaze meeting hers. "But you must trust me. The sanctuary is protected. It's the only place where Kai can fully understand his abilities." "I trust you," Arya replied, though her voice wavered slightly. "But I don't understand. What is this power? What does it mean for Kai?" Kale looked away for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. "Kai's power is tied to the energy of this world. He has the ability to connect with the very forces that shape this planet, the earth, the sky, the water, the fire. His connection is stronger than any we've ever seen. He can use that energy to control the elements, to heal, to protect. But it's not just his power that makes him special. It's the way he can balance the forces within him. He has the potential to restore what's been lost, to stop the destruction that's coming." Arya listened intently, her mind racing. It was hard to believe that her baby, so small and innocent, could hold such power. She had never even seen him smile, let alone display any kind of ability. But Kale's words rang with a certain truth. There was something about Kai that felt different. She could feel it when she held him, when she looked into his eyes, even when he was asleep in her arms. There was something inside him, something powerful and untapped. "But how do we prepare him for this?" Arya asked, her voice filled with worry. How can he possibly understand what he's supposed to do? He's just a baby. Kale nodded, understanding the fear in her voice. He will grow into it, he said. The sanctuary will help him. It's a place of learning, of healing. He will find the guidance he needs there. Arya wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that everything would be all right. But how could she? How could she trust that a place, a hidden sanctuary, could be enough to protect Kai from the storm that was coming? They continued on through the forest, the night growing darker around them. The air grew colder and Arya could feel the exhaustion in her bones. She longed for a bed, for warmth, for safety. But those things were far away now. They were far from home, far from the life they had known. They were on the run, and there was no turning back. By the time they reached the top of the hill, the moon had risen high in the sky, casting a silver glow over the landscape. Below them, nestled in a small valley, was a hidden village. It was surrounded by dense trees, the buildings barely visible through the thick underbrush. The sight of it made Arya's heart leap in her chest. This was it. This was where they would find shelter. "This is it," Kale said, his voice quieter now, almost reverent. "This is where you and Kai will be safe." Arya stood there for a moment, taking in the sight of the village. It was peaceful, untouched by the chaos that had destroyed their world. It was a place that felt like a dream, a place that promised safety and refuge. But even as she looked at it, a part of her wondered if it could truly be everything Kale claimed it to be. They made their way down the hill, passing through a narrow path that wound its way between the trees. As they entered the village, Arya felt a sense of calm wash over her. The air was different here, cleaner, fresher, as if the village itself were alive, breathing in the peacefulness that surrounded it. The buildings were small and simple, made of wood and stone, with thatched roofs and open windows. The village felt ancient, but not in a way that was oppressive. It felt timeless, like a place that had been untouched by the wars and struggles of the outside world. As they entered the heart of the village, Kale stopped. He turned to Arya, his expression serious once again. "This is where you will stay," he said. "I will take Kai and begin his training. You need to rest. You've been through a lot." Arya nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this place, for all its peacefulness, was still just the calm before the storm. Kale had said they would be safe here, but Arya couldn't forget the reason they had come here in the first place. The invaders were still out there. They were still hunting Kai, and soon they would come for him. And when they did, what would she do? "Thank you, Kale," Arya said quietly, "for everything, for bringing him back to me." Kale smiled, though it was a fleeting expression. "It's my duty," he said simply. "But you're the one who will protect him. You're the one who will make sure he understands his purpose." Arya watched as Kale took Kai from her arms and walked toward a small building at the center of the village. She stood there, rooted to the spot, as the door closed behind him. She was alone now, alone with her thoughts, alone with her fear. But for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to breathe. She allowed herself to hope. The path ahead was uncertain, but at least for now they were safe. They had a chance to protect Kai, to help him understand his power. And maybe, just maybe, they could stop the destruction that was coming. But Arya knew one thing for sure. She would do whatever it took to keep her son safe. Whatever it took.